Hi everybody, welcome again to another program of Yeshiva Classroom. We're here all the time. You can catch us on the Google search, Yeshiva Classroom. And hopefully we try to bring some really important subjects to you. And without further ado, I'm just going to start off with an important mitzvah, one of the 613 commandments that we do not observe. Again, we do not observe. And what is it? It's the fear of God. Oh, who wants to have a God that we should be fearful of Him? That we should be fearful of Him. We skip over that and we go to love the God. Well, let's talk about fear of God and the importance and significance that it's written in the Torah, chapter 10 in Deuteronomy. You should mark this down. Chapter 10 in Deuteronomy. It's chapter 10, verse 12. Over there it says, a rhetorical question, what does God ask of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to love Him, to serve Him, and to do the commandments. The first phrase is you should fear the Lord your God. Our is a God that we should fear, we should love. We say to Shema Yisrael, it's important. We say should love your Lord your God with all your heart, with your mind, your soul, and all your might. You should love Him. But how about fear? Who talks about fear? And I got this from a few sources, but basically I want to give it over to Rabbi Victor Miller, Naphtali Glick, writes a pamphlet on it, Erev Shavuos. But basically, you know, what we have to have in mind regarding fear is the emotion we got as a people. The entire Jewish people stood in front of Mount Sinai after traveling those 50 days, and we stood on Mount Sinai on the Sivan, the 6th of Sivan, and we were in the environment of the mountain smoking like a kivshon, like a furnace, and the mountain was on fire. There was thunder and lightning, and the environment was unreal. We were like prophets because the voice of sound, the sound of God sounded throughout. The shofar was blowing. We fainted. We hallushed. We couldn't believe what was happening, and our souls went out from us. Our souls left our bodies, like the Nevi'im, where they had to go into a trance before they received the words of God, and God said, and the people said to God, we are unable to stand this environment, the ambiance. Please ask God if you'll be an oracle, a point that you should receive this message and give it over to us. And God said, yes, that's right, that's a good thing. We should do that and let the people rest from this all-inspiring environment, all-inspiring fear. Fear went through our body, through our hearts, and our chromosomes and our genes were changed. I don't know if you can change if you can if you can scientifically examine our chromosomes and genes of Jews that live today, and find out this unique entity that we get at Mount Sinai. That's fear of God. And that's what we have to do throughout our lifetimes. We have to conjure those feelings up, like our forefathers passed down to us, the fear of God Almighty, the God of the Jewish people, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We only we only pray to one God, and that's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's no other Mickey Mouses that come in between those teachings, whether it's Christianity or Islam. The Torah says in Numbers 23:19, God is not a man. God is not a son of a man. And God is not fickle. Fickle meaning he doesn't change his mind. He does not change his mind. You want to go after the real thing? Look, we're not looking for converts. We're not looking for converts, but there are many conversions that take place, and my experience is that once they convert, they want to marry not a fellow convert, but a Jew. And unknowingly, I don't know if they realize it, but they're looking for that difference that the Jews have, that they received at Mount Sinai, that fear and awe, and that's what we should bring up from time to time, that fear of how we stood in front of Mount Sinai and felt the ambiance, which was unreal. Our souls went out of our bodies, and our chromosomes and genes were changed. Jews are different. Jews are different. And we are distinct many times in the Torah. You know, write these things down. You got Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12. Look it up. What does it say in Deuteronomy chapter 10? Chapter 10, verse 12. What does God ask of you? But to fear the Lord your God. How are you going to fear him? How? How do you fear him? And you recall your forefathers as they stood in front of Mount Sinai, and they heard the sound of the voice of God. This fire, the mountain was on fire. The smoking mountain. The shofar sounded throughout. There was thunder and lightning. The ambiance was unreal. And conjure these thoughts in your mind. That's the mitzvah of you should fear the Lord your God. That's how you fear the Lord your God. And we don't put any emphasis or go out of our way to relive those happenings that our forefathers went at, and by so doing we accomplish a mitzvah. And many people don't know. Many people don't know that they're that this is a mitzvah written explicitly in the Torah. What does it say over there, chapter 10, verse 12? A rhetorical question. What does God ask of you? The first phrase, to fear the Lord your God, to love the Lord your God with all your might, with all your soul, and to walk in his ways, and to perform the benefits, and to perform the commandments for your benefit. That's all in chapter 10, verse 12. Then it goes on to say, God is in the heavens above the earth, and all that there is therein, but only in your forefathers did he delight to love them, to choose you, his offspring, their offspring, from all the nations of the world, as of this day, as of the day that I'm speaking to you and the day that you're hearing it, that we are chosen for your holy people. I chose you as a treasured people from all the peoples on the face of the nation. So again, the Jews are different. We have to flaunt that. We have to tell people how we are so different in the eyes of God because we earned it through our forefathers. And those forefathers were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And now they wanted to say that Lamarck was a French scientist who wanted to say characteristics are inherited, but it's been proven, it's been disproven. But in the earlier days, I believe when Abraham was chosen, that his characteristics were passed on to Isaac, and Isaac passed it on to his son Jacob. Yes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We say every day in the davening that God Hodu. Right after Baruch She'amar, we say that God made a covenant with Abraham. He made an oath with Isaac, and he made a chok and a law that cannot be transgressed with Jacob, and this was carried on all the way to our forefathers who went down to Egypt and grew into a nation and learned these basic teachings that we got at Mara on entering before entering the Holy Land, etc. So we are different. We are very different. We are proud of it, and we should flaunt it. Now, just to get back, you have a lot of good things that try to bring over it. This is being transmitted on 4/28, April 28th, 2025, Common Era, right? Common Era. And this is tape number 484, 484. So, that's, yeah, I have some other important inyanim to speak about, and hopefully I'll get to them. But it's important to fear the Lord your God explicitly. The commandment is written in the Torah. And how do you fear? And how do you do that? By recounting and recalling the times when our forefathers went out of Egypt, and they hastened to Mount Sinai to learn the Torah. And by the way, the Torah was not given. The written Torah was not given there. Now we're going to leave that to a little lighter subject. And what I have before me are dandelions. You know, it's April. Dandelions are in full bloom, and what a miracle that we can that we can see right before our eyes. You know, it seems to be a plant, a weed. Many consider it as a weed. What is a weed? It's a plant out of place. But we can learn a lot of things from the dandelion. the leaves are medicinal, and I put them in the salad. They're very beneficial. The leaves of the dandelion. But what I want to bring out today is that here are 3 dandelions. One produces a flower, and the flower closes up here. Flower closes up, and before the flower was up, standing straight. But once the flower closed up, there is a ball of seeds, all attached to a parachute. I don't have that stage with me, but that stage is when the dandelion stands up, and all this fluffy mass, untangled seed attached to the parachute, each seed attached to a parachute, waiting for the wind to blow it to another location. But in this little, like a Houdini, in this little close covering, the flower changed to a mass of seeds. To a mass of seeds with parachutes on it. Now, you want to say to the atheists and the agnostics and the disbelievers and to the media, you're speaking yet about the media. I want to get back to that, but there's no way that you could turn a flower into seeds with parachute on each seed, untangled, ready to be blown away. That's creation. And that's something we always have to have in mind, that God created the world and all the things therein for the benefit of man. And he receives happiness over this. So, yeah, so much for the dandelion and the belief and the teachings of creation. You know, I have written down here. We know that one of the biggest commandments is fear God. We know how to do it by recounting the forefathers how they stood in Mount Sinai. Now, I want to go into another subject, which is not going to be too popular with some people, because well, I'll explain. Look, throughout the years, I've seen graduates of day schools, and the range of knowledge that they have of Jewish subjects is pathetic on many of the graduates. They have no idea what a kasha is, a teretz, the beauty of a kasha, a good vort. Any of that is alien to their thinking. And I'm not speaking about 1 or 2 cases. I'm speaking about a significant percentage of the graduates. Oh, there are many who love to learn and look forward to a year in Israel, but many are lost. They're just no better than when they came in. And there's only one source that I can blame, and that's the teachers and the administration of the yeshivas, whether it's South Shore, DRS, Halb, Hank. They're all guilty, because when you go to the parent teachers, what do you have? Oh, he's a nice boy, he's a nice girl, it's a pleasure to have him in class. But what does he know? I doubt many of them know very little, and they're not encouraged. And the yeshiva knows about it, the administration knows about it, and they're not doing anything. they may say you have a resource room or something, but they got to divide the classes, and they got to cut out that graduation business. Waste the whole day, graduating from kindergarten, graduating from the first grade, graduating from the sixth grade. There's no graduation. Take it safer and see if you can go into the next class. And how do you test that out? Very simple, parents. All you do is you want your child to learn to give over something that he learned in school that week. Very simple. He has to repeat for you something that he learned by heart, or if it's not appropriate, by looking in and repeating the words, whether it's Mishnah, Chumash, or whatever. And if he's not able to do any of that on the Shabbos, then go down to the school. And I'm sure there are parents out there that have experienced this zero growth in their children, and get together with the other parents and march down there, because day schools and yeshivas have a free reign. They can do whatever they want, and there's got to be a stop to that. Every child is important, especially if you got him into a yeshiva or a day school where he's learning Torah. We have to put full emphasis on him. He's got to be into a smaller class, and they've got to work by themselves, and they got to think and do for themselves. If they're not making progress, you're just spinning wheels, and you're not getting anywhere. So for your sake, for the child's sake, and for Israel's sake, see what check your child's progress. How do you check your child's progress? By listening to him at the Shabbos table every week to see what he has come up with, right? To see what he has come up with. So students must give over out loud. Students must give over out loud every Shabbos to see what they have accomplished. Here, the goal is to learn Torah. Look, they have to love to learn Torah. And I suggest that the families make a Shabbos that is not drawn out with long speeches in the shul by the rabbi, but come home and before you eat, or after you eat, or in between, everybody take out a Chumash, 15 minutes of Chumash in English. Maybe you'll do a few sentences, maybe you do a paragraph or two, or maybe you'll do the whole Sedra, which will be very hard in that short time. Hopefully you would have worked at it during the week. But that's important. That's important. Your goal is to love to learn Torah, and your day school or yeshiva should be what? Should be committed to learning Torah, and not to hear these politicians coming in and speaking to you. But you have every minute not wasted with personal one-on-one teachers or you working by yourself. But it's too much listening, not enough working by yourself. And one thing that is important is that the secular studies should be relegated to 5 to 7 p.m. That's it. 5 to 7 p.m. and the rest of the day you're learning Torah, whatever it is. And because you see, once you get a good idea of how to use your head to get a question and a teretz and a piece of Torah, then once you get to the English subjects, there'll be a snap. It's so easy to master. So that's what's important. That there is a great injustice being done by the rabbis and the teachers of day schools and yeshivas. Every student is important, and I can tell you, I can show you, I can tell you, I'll tell you in private that there are late bloomers that were given up in their quest for day school instruction, and they became leaders and intelligentsia of banks and all kinds of higher institutions of learning in the secular field. So listen, it's your child, and partner with somebody. Get up there and tell them, administration. Yeah, that's enough of them badgering you for your last nickel and dimes. Get up there and tell them this is what you want your child to be able to do, and you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. Why? How? On Shabbos. Let him say over. I don't care, a few sentences, a few thoughts, anything. And can you do it? I doubt if you're going to have many people doing that, right? But that's what you have to do. It's your child, and if you see something, speak up, and you'll be a stronger hand if you go with a co-parent. Yeah. So that's what else do I have down here? In Peninsula Boulevard, there are 7 synagogues. 7 synagogues on like a 5-block area on Peninsula Boulevard in the 5 towns in Cedarhurst. 7, and they're praying, very important. But they should have a study hour. A study hour in these synagogues to their congregants. No teachers, but just come for 1 hour Sundays. What is it, Carvel? It says that Wednesdays are for Sundays. Well, Wednesdays are Sundays, but Sundays in our lexicon, Sundays are for learning. Sundays are for learning, and that means that every one of the congregants and anyone else out there is invited to come into our synagogue and learn for 1 hour, at least 1 hour. You don't have to be a member. You're not going to be any teachers. Bring your book or use our book, but you come. Come into the shul, the empty places. Okay, those are important lessons. Is anybody going to carry them out? I don't know. Look, I wrote a narrative. Entitled, I pass it out as much as I can. I Xerox them at Staples, but basically what it says is, Judaism saves the world. Jews are a divinely chosen, treasured people. That we find in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 15. Our altruistic God created planet Earth, man, and his environment, enabling him to live and grow in this soul improvement world by exercising his free will correctly. That's the purpose of our life. God breathes into man, and the soul returns to God who gave it. Kehelah chapter 12, verse 6. God is pleased when man grows within his guidelines. In other words, there are guidelines for man to follow. Without that, he'll get off the track very easily. Without guidelines, Adam and his posterity, except Noah, were all destroyed. Noah was insufficiently charged as his offspring built the Tower of Babel to fight God. God saw Abraham's resume and made a covenant with 3 million who stood at Mount Sinai. Hearing the 10 Commandments and all the civil laws, right? All the civil laws went there when we stood on Mount Sinai. The 10 Commandments in chapter 20 of Exodus, and the 4 chapters following it, which are the civil laws of responsibilities, torts, liabilities between man and man. They are all holy. They are all holy. That's holiness, and that's how we live. Not only spirituality, but between man and man. Those are laws that were given, and they're specific. That it says, do not extend your hand to an evil person. Listen to the grievant, and do not go after the majority for evil. Oh, let's go. Look, the whole crowd is going to lynch him. Let's go. They must be right. We'll follow them. No, listen to what is right. Right. Jews all agree to observe the written and the book of the covenant in chapter 24. They all agreed, Naaseh v'nishma. Right? They all said, we will do and we will learn. Chapter 24 in Exodus. Read that. God was so pleased that he that he was conjured in a vision, eating and drinking with Jews. He was so pleased that the Jews accepted these guidelines to live by, that he, in a vision, was seen eating and drinking with the Jewish people. This is a narrative that I wrote. I gave them as much as I could. So look, there's a lot. There's a lot to give over, and it's important to try to strengthen yourself. Like the Haredi, nothing else in life is important but to learn God and to fear God, to love God, and to do the mitzvahs. Because before you know it, the soul has got to be given back. And by the way, if anybody wants to join me and to help me out and be a co-host with me, you see my number on the board. It's 516-295-4233. 295-4233. Leave a message. My son brought a lot of the family down to Orlando for Pesach. And what's so significant about Orlando, this particular community had 125 houses, and they were all they're all on this one winding road with a few cul-de-sacs, and it was arranged very nicely. But each house consisted of 6 of 6 bedrooms on 2 floors, with each having a private bath and shower and toilet. And adjacent to the kitchen was a small pool with a jacuzzi in it. And this way, it's expensive, but if you have a large family, extended family, everybody has their own private quarters, so to speak, their bedrooms, and it comes out very economically, whatever. So anyway, at the Seder, it was brought out that we didn't have time to listen to the laning, the Torah reading in Chalamoid and on Yontif, and one person said, "Oh, it's about it's about korbanos," and so it's there's a lot to talk about, especially korbanos, but I want to speak about the laning, which this person said was only about korbanos, which is not true. They all had to deal with the subject of Pesach and how they and how they relate to that subject. So, for instance, in chapter 11 in Exodus, it speaks about the angel passing over the houses of the Jews who had dabbed their their doorposts and with dipping into the blood so that God should pass over, and another laning was where God was told Moses to carve a second pair of luchos, of stones, and come up with the second pair because he had broken the first pair, and at that time Moses requested God to come with us because people have a tendency to leave and to go astray, and he asked God to come with us. Excuse me. And this is in chapter 34 in Exodus. So God said, "I will make you distinct over all the peoples of the world, and they will recognize it, and they will recognize it. I will make you distinct over all the nations of the world, and they will recognize it. And I will bring you to the land of Israel. I will bring you to the land of Israel, and you will see." And throughout your generations, people will marvel, maybe not out loud, but down deep they feel that the Jews, for some reason, like cream, comes to the top. And we should flaunt that. We should flaunt that because we should be proud of the fact that we are God's chosen people. It says so several times in the Torah. We should flaunt that. And that's a message that is given in 34. And then there's another laning that says that about the Pesach Sheni, if you forgot the first Pesach, that's a laning that we read. And another laning was after, in chapter 32 in Exodus, after the Jews had transgressed, Moshe Vayachel, he prayed profusely and v'yinochem, and to be forgiven, and God would reconsider, and God will reconsider, and Moses says, if you do not come with us, erase me from the book if you do not forgive us. And God said, I will forgive, I will reconsider, I will take it into consideration. And in the last sentences of, Moshe said, wipe me from your book. Moshe said, wipe me from your ledger if you do not reconsider. And we see from there that there's a ledger that's kept on everybody to see how well our soul performed. This is a testing world. I afflicted you and tested you to see what is in your heart, to see whether you kept the commandments or not. Whenever it says heart in the Torah, it means your mind. So that's, again, look at the journey that you traveled these 40 years, and look at the different stops you made, because I afflicted you and tested you to see what is in your heart, see what is in your mind, to see whether you kept the commandments or not, to see whether you kept the commandments or not, for it is for your benefit. And God did reconsider. And then on chapter 33, it says over there, separate your tent from the people. Moses, talking to Moses, separate your tent from the people. And the people saw from a distance how Moses' tent was separated, and a pillar of cloud came to the entrance of the tent and stood there. And this is called Ohel Moed. This is a tent of the meeting, where God in the future will come down to the Holy of Holies. Just like we saw the tent of Moses becoming Ohel Moed, the tent of the meeting, because God came down in the pillar and stood at the entrance. Yeah, so what happened at the end of 33, so this is one of the lanings that we do on Pesach. Look, it's so much work, but if you love it, you're going to push yourself to get another little bit of more Torah. And over there it says, and it says, God tells Moses to go forward to the promised land, because that's what was made. That was the covenant that was made with us, that God will give you the land, and we're still getting it today. We're still getting the land, maybe piecemeal, but we're getting it. Before you know it, Judea and Samaria will be ours, and Gaza, where Isaac stood, and he says, God said, and he made an oath to Isaac. He said, in chapter 26, all the lands that you see will be given to you and your descendants. And that he saw was the land of Gaza. So we remember that God recalls. We don't have to remind him. God knows, and he will recall, especially if we conduct ourselves according to the covenant that we agreed upon. The covenant was only the covenant between the parts, where God spoke to Abraham, promising the land. several times. And it was not right that Abraham says, "What will you give me?" Because he spoke several times what he will give to you and the Jewish people. So Moses says, well, this is all in chapter 33, but we want the status quo. You didn't say that you will go be with us, or your angel will go with us. We don't want any different but you or your angel. And God said, I agreed. And then he said, make us distinct, and that no other nation will supplement us and become cherished as we are. I agreed to that. And then the most important thought was, show me your glory. He says, seeing that God was so giving, he asked, why do good people suffer? And the answer is given over there in chapter 33. It says over there, I will favor to whom I will favor, and I will show mercy to whom I show mercy. So even if we are down seemingly on our performance, God takes into account everything and will make sure it is a fair mark that we received at our demise. Make sure that it's a fair mark that we receive in our demise. You know, this is 428 and 427. I was riding in the car, and I always tune into NPR, which is a station that is heavily anti-Trump and anti-Jewish and pro-Palestinian, and they put the BBC on there how it seems like 12 and 1 p.m. and it says that the Jew that showed all the casualties that were afflicted by Jewish soldiers when they went to attack Gaza, and it just dealt on the fact that here's a child with a bullet here, and another Arab child was shot over here, and on it went. Not, blaming the Jews for that. When the Arabs, the Hamas, started the whole thing by killing over 1,000 Jewish soldiers who were on base and in cold blood. If they really care about their people, they will surrender. And then they wouldn't be, the civilians wouldn't be shot. And they can live in peace. And Hamas can disarm and go out of existence. You say, anti-Semitism is rife. President Trump is making laws and making sure the colleges are free to learn, and there's no anti-Semitic incidences. Look, you can have all the laws you want on the book against anti-Semitism, but there's only one law that really addresses the problem and gets rid of anti-Semitism. What is it? 28:9 in Deuteronomy. 28:9. Perform the commandments of the Torah and walk in the ways of God, and all the nations will fear you. Again, very simple. Where's my prop over here? It says, what does it say over there? It says over there, observe the commandments, walk in the ways of God, and all the nations will fear you. You're not going to make any laws in the University of Pennsylvania or you fight Harvard. These people are sent by God because the Jews went astray. That's why they're being punished. And the emphasis should be on teaching Jews the significance of keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs. That's our goal. And with that we'll have peace. There won't be anti-Semitism, and we will live a charmed, happy life. Very simple. Very simple. What are we going to talk about? It's always the Talmud, and Daniel, the temple, the first temple stood 410 years, and 410 years, and the last of the kings who was taken into captivity after his sons were tortured and he was blinded, and prior to that, the Goyim, after the kingdom, the last four kings of Judea were Yoshayahu, right? Who was a very righteous person, he learned Torah from scratch, and he found and discovered it because his forefather Ammon and Manasseh were very evil idol worshippers. Anyway, Yochachaz, Yochachim, Yochachin, Kim Yochachin, and the last one was Tzidkiyahu. Well, the Babylonians came down, and they raided in the let me see, that was his third year, the 11th year of Yochanchin, short Yochanchin. They raided and they took brain power, like Trump says, brain power. The Jews are noted for that. And they brought them to Babel, and they made them officers and ran the government. And that was under Nebuchadnezzar, and his son, evil Merodach, and then came Belshazzar. So, and Belshazzar, he had Daniel. They give blandishments and favor to the Jews, and then they say, now convert to our religion, quote unquote. But Daniel wouldn't convert. He wouldn't bow down. He wouldn't bow down to their blandishments and their good and their good offerings, just like Joseph's Potiphar's wife. They wouldn't bow down. They kept their Judaism. And there was the book of Daniel, 13 years before the fall of the kingdom of Judah. And what had happened was a handwriting appeared on the wall, Mene Tekel Ushpozan, that predicted the four kingdoms that would follow Belshazzar. And sure enough, the next day, the Medes took over the Babylonians, and that was Darius, and then came Cyrus, who was from the Persians. He took over Persians, and they showed where it's written that in the book of Isaiah that Cyrus would restore the temple. So he had the temple restored, and he had in order to send let Ezra have a free hand. He sent Nehemiah down there, and under the royal decree to strengthen the walls, and that was in the book of Daniel. So, but Ahasuerus came after him, and he stopped the building, and we have the whole ending from Esther and Mordecai, and then came Darius II and Cyrus II. How do we get onto that subject? I don't know, but that's a little bit of Torah. And this week Sedra is Tazria and Torah. We have two Sedras in one, and it's important to understand that this is not a physical ailment, because this saras, this affliction, went on to clothing, to woof and warp of clothing, onto the houses and onto the people. It was something that people had to realize, that the speaking of lashon hara, evil tongue, is very bad, and your property will be afflicted, your clothing, your walls of your house, and finally yourself, and then they're giving all kinds of tests, and all kinds of tests to see if the tsaras went away, if the tsaras, that affliction went away. And that was always inspected by the Kayin. And 1 week after another week, to see if it spread, if it grew. And it was always the Kohen there. And the Kayin always spoke to the afflicted one, telling him to look at your ways and improve yourself, so that this affliction will go away, And that's the book of Eov. We can speak a little bit about Eov, how Eov declared his innocence. He didn't do anything wrong. And his friends kept saying, "You must have done something. You must have done something." That's the book of Job. So, touching upon it is not really going to do good justice. You have to look at these books, and you have to leave one book aside and go to another book, go to the linear Siddur, so you get the meanings of the words. You have to have a quiet room, you have to get rid of TV. All these things are conducive to learning and strengthening your soul. And above all, you have to learn the oral Torah, and you can get it at Menorah Publications. It's in English. It's 718-921-9000. 718-921-1000. It's I think it goes $10. So that's icing on the cake. Look, there's so many things we went over, But one of the most important things are fear the Lord your God. Deuteronomy chapter 10:12. Look at the beginning of the program, you'll see. What does God ask of you? To fear the Lord your God, to love the Lord your God, to walk in His ways, to do the commandments for your benefit. Who fears the Lord your God? How do you fear the Lord your God? By recounting the environment, the ambiance our forefathers had at Mount Sinai. And the fear that went into them. And that's how we should recount. And that's how we should have the awe and fear of heaven. It's a mitzvah. But how many people follow that and do the mitzvah? We can do all the mitzvahs, but when it comes to you fear the Lord your God, it's written explicitly to fear the Lord your God. How do we do it? By recounting the fear that permeated our forefathers that stood on Mount Sinai. Okay, look, this is all in English. The Gemara is in English. From when to when to read the Shema Yisrael of the evening. From when to when? Yes. From the time that the Kohanim entered to eat their truma. It's nothing to give them black and white. You have to dig into why that answers the question. From when to when do we read the Shema Yisrael of the evening?